Great to be here, Ralph. Ralph, when we started our campaign a few months ago, it was about a year ago now, he came into our board. We met with Manship Media. We said, we want everybody to try to increase their investments. We need to go big or go home. What are you guys going to do? They did increase their investment. He came to our board of directors. He walked in. He said, I just want all of you to know, I upped mine. Up yours. As you'd expect. It's great to be here. I came before you about a year ago to talk about our new 5-year strategic plan for the Baton Rouge area chamber. We spent our time during COVID, of course, worrying about and responding to the needs of the community, but we also spent a lot of time thinking about where is economic development in this moment after COVID, and where is Baton Rouge after COVID. We looked at 39 other cities, and that benchmarking gave us a new strategic set of goals that we shared with you last year. I am really pleased to say that the community responded, and BRAC today is stronger than ever, both financially and as you just saw a moment ago with the staff resources that we have that Ralph recognized. And we are nothing without this team that leads our organization today, and I'll just join with Ralph again in saying a mighty appreciation to the leaders that you have in front of you that run this team. Our team is about 30 folks strong, a little over 30 folks strong to do this work. We're one of the larger chambers and economic development groups in the country that does this work. Just last year, we received an award of being one of the top 20 economic development organizations in the nation, again, led by the quality of the team that you have in front of you. So you got a lot to really be proud of as an organization. When we came to you, we told you about what that strategy has to change to look like, mostly recognizing that economic development really has changed and the nature of economic development has changed. We see it in the projects that come to visit. We see it in the nature of growth that's happening in communities like we went on our Canvas trip to go see, many of our Canvas trips to go see. And what we have seen change is that talent and quality of place very much drive the nature of economic dynamism today in regional economies like Baton Rouge all across the country. And how we respond to that is critical. But it's not something that, as Ralph said, we can do as 30 staff of a board of 60 folks and a group of investors of about 1,500 businesses. It's got to really be a community-wide effort if you really want to try to drive impactful change. That is the lesson I would tell you. I just saved you $2,000. You didn't have to go on Canvas. That's what we learn on Canvas every time we go on a Canvas trip. Last year, we also changed. I'm just going to refer a few times to the slides, but you don't have to necessarily look at them. We changed our mission and vision statement. We asked ourselves, why does BRAC need to exist? What is our purpose as an organization? And our purpose is really to accelerate economic opportunity in the Baton Rouge area for everyone. And that comma that sets apart Baton Rouge area and for everyone is a really important note to know that we have to think more inclusively about the purpose of economic growth going forward than perhaps we have in the past. And I think you'll hear that in some of the comments I want to share with you today. It also reminds me of a joke about a comma and the importance of a comma in a sentence like, let's eat, Grandma. Super important comma right there to have. Super important comma to talk about the Baton Rouge area. I also want to start by sharing just a little bit of economic data about Baton Rouge for where we are today. And our team puts out weekly and monthly data about economic statistics about in the Baton Rouge area. We just released our economic outlook for the year last month. In sum, and you can take these talking points anywhere you want about where we are as a Baton Rouge area economy right now. We are enjoying our lowest ever unemployment rate in the history of the city and region of Baton Rouge. Just think about that. 2.6% unemployment is the lowest it has ever been. And when you think about the challenges you face in hiring as businesses, man, that's why. We have a very low unemployment rate right now. We have the fewest number of people unemployed looking for work in Baton Rouge today than we have had since 1999. Just shortly after that Christmas card picture was taken when I still had hair. That is how long it's been since we had as few people as are unemployed looking for work as we do right now. At that moment, Baton Rouge had only about 600,000 people living and residing in the metropolitan area. Today, it was 4 parishes then as an MSA. Today, we're 10 parishes, about 870,000 people who live in the Metro Baton Rouge area. And yet, we still have our lowest ever unemployment rate, even though we're over 270,000 people bigger than we were then. The bottom 25% of earners in Baton Rouge today in the last 2 years have seen their incomes rise faster than the top 25% of earners in Baton Rouge. We're seeing the pressures of labor challenges, but also the opportunities in this economy driving up wages across the community at all levels, but especially for the bottom 25% of earners in Baton Rouge, which is good news overall for the regional economy that we'll see that spreading out. We surveyed employers last year. 42% of Baton Rouge employers in October, November said that they expected in 2023 they would increase their employee count over the course of this year. 52% said that they would increase their revenues. They expected to increase their revenues this calendar year. We expect the regional economy, when you look at the aggregated forecast, over the next 2 years, we should grow by about 8,000 or 9,000 jobs in the Baton Rouge area, continuing a steady rise. The other thing that's fascinating in the indicators is we've seen a higher increase in folks starting new businesses over the last 2 years. Every parish in the region has been in the top 25% of counties in America in increasing the number of businesses in their community. So we're seeing new business starts across the entire 9-parish area, about 2,700 new businesses in the last 2 years. And the number of folks registering for businesses continues to increase if you saw the daily report this morning. So that gives you a sense of this. We're at a privileged point as an economy, which is a great place to be, but we always know we can do better, and we see regional economies that grow even faster and even more dynamically than Baton Rouge, and we ask the question, why? What can we do more to accelerate that change? And so that's what I want to share with you. Last year, I shared with you our strategic priorities, which are these. 4 big overarching goals that you see on the left hand of this screen that drive the organization's work. We hired Ernst & Young Economic Development Consulting to help us set up these strategic goals, and we brought together hundreds of businesses to help us look at that data and think about what we should do with that information. And we decided that these are the big priorities. Every one of these has almost a book written behind it of the tactics that our staff and our organization, our board and our committees will use to try to execute this plan, which we kicked off last year, and I'll give you some updates on how we did. This year in 2023, you'll see those annual priorities that we have for our organization set forth by our committees and our board that are going to drive our work, and I'm going to touch on these over the course of the remarks. I just want to make sure that we share with you that the work that we're doing is driven by a plan, informed by data, and led by an amazing team and board that makes it possible. So I thought we would have a little fun with this, to do this remarks a little bit differently than just going through the story. What we want to talk about differently is perhaps how BRAC can flip the script in 2023, but also how that may be also something that each of us can do in our own lives. So let's just take on a few of the things we hear ourselves, maybe some of you say, about what you think about Baton Rouge. So let's start with this comment. We hear that oil and gas is the only industry fueling the Baton Rouge area economy. I'm not going to make you show hands, but if that's something that you have thought, and if you thought recently, let's dispel that notion real quickly. Baton Rouge is actually positioned to be the net zero capital of America. In the last 2 years, we've seen over $25 billion of capital committed to what we would call renewables type projects in this space, in this landscape that you can think of as transitional energy. That's almost as much, Russell, almost as much as Houston has seen announced in feasibility studies in Houston, Texas. And the Baton Rouge area has seen similar levels of capital investment planning and commitments that are evaluating projects. In the last year alone, 2 billion more projects announced their actual commitment of capital to projects, 200 direct jobs just in the space of renewables and transitional energy. We're seeing a fascinating change, and the technologies that are coming to market in the Baton Rouge area. The other thing that's fascinating is this little pie chart you see, and I know it's not readable. What's more important to see how interestingly level those pie charts are. That is the sectors of our economy that make up the Baton Rouge economy, which is to answer the question, are we a diversified economy, or are we reliant on one industry alone? We actually asked our research staff to look this up. There are 384 metro areas in the Baton Rouge area. Baton Rouge is the 13th most diverse economy in the country, which is fascinating to think about. We also, let me just kind of use Houston as an analogy in a different way. We think about the Baton Rouge area in a similar way that we might to Houston. We know of Houston as an energy center. But I would tell you that healthcare is as big a dominant force in driving the Baton Rouge area economy as it is to the Houston economy. We know of assets like MD Anderson. Here we have seen and watched news announcements over the last 2 and 3 years of the amazing amount of change that's happening across the landscape of healthcare. In the last 12 months of data, ending in November, healthcare was the highest source of job growth in the Baton Rouge area for the last 12 months, 7% growth in the healthcare sector. And when you talk to our friends in healthcare, Edgardo can attest, it's a challenge to hire right now. And so our priority is going to be to make sure we continue to focus on the needs that we have to fuel that growth. But it's a great opportunity to see the dynamism of this economy is not resting on one sector alone. And now you're armed with how to talk about that. When we do our target work, when we go after business development efforts, both for existing companies to grow or new ones, these are the target sectors that we should all be talking about for the Baton Rouge area. This energy transition opportunity, what's happening in healthcare and relatedly in life sciences related to the strengths of LSU's biotechnology research, as well as the Pennington Biomedical, which we're quite familiar with, the commercial opportunities that come from that. What's happening in coastal resilience and sustainability at that intersection of engineering capabilities, which we are amazingly rich in resources with engineering talent. It's an amazing opportunity for us to market ourselves around. And then, of course, the continued opportunities that we see in software and technology. We're going to be continuing to focus on these. What we said last year and we are doing this year is making sure that all of our investments in pursuit of opportunities are focused on these big four opportunities to drive continued diversification of the economy. What are we going to do this year? Well, we built a carbon reduction alliance led by industry partners. It's been meeting quarterly. It's an incredibly energized group, and we're looking at all the technology capabilities that are necessary to help all of our industrial companies who have made net zero commitments by 2050 to align those goals, to ask themselves, how do you intend to accomplish these, and are there ways when we do that we can create new opportunities for all of us to benefit, and that we want to be at the forefront of telling that story to the rest of the country about what that opportunity looks like. And it's an exciting meeting to be a part of and to hear companies. These are companies, not necessarily investors of BRAC. We just want to make sure that we are at the center of coordinating that alliance and that conversation. We also are hiring into this work. By the end of this quarter, we'll have 2 dedicated staff. All they're doing is focusing on those 4 sectors and bringing in new opportunities that we showed you on the last slide. And then the other thing I want to point out is we were part of an award a few months ago that was given to our counterparts over in New Orleans, Greater New Orleans, Inc., who put in an application, one of over 500 applications for a prize worth $100 million per community that went after it, was what we were told. And the one that we joined forces with was called H2 the Future. And that project was focused on this idea of creating economic opportunity out of the energy transition. And our team is going to be leading a new part of that called H2BD, H2 Business Development, which is intended to align all the efforts from Lake Charles to home at Thibodaux and New Orleans. As we think about the industrial transition that's occurring, it really needs to be tightly coordinated, not only in those communities, but to go after opportunities that can come to Louisiana if we don't see ourselves as competitors, but as collaborators. And we're going to be at the lead of that at BRAC, which is very exciting. Let me try another one for you. Everyone in Baton Rouge is moving away. Have you heard someone say this? Right? You don't have to laugh about it. It's true. Like when people complain about this, oh my gosh, I'm so concerned about all these people that I have that are friends or their kids are moving away. This is the data on our population and our growth. And I know you can't read this, but our population in the 9-parish area has grown every year since the floods of 2016, and it's expected to continue to do so. We have had 3 consecutive years of net positive in-migration in the Baton Rouge area. More folks moving in than moving out. And that trend is one that we also hope and expect will continue. This is a comparison, this little chart of net migration per 100 residents of where Baton Rouge stacks up to some other similar peer-sized cities, metros that we like to compare ourselves to. And you'll see we're up there in net positive territory with Richmond, with Oklahoma City, with Greenville, and seeing more folks moving in than moving out. This is a place we can have pride that folks want to try out and come to and set down roots. We've been having a lot of focus on this. We said this in our work last year. A year ago today, we launched something called BR Works, the region's first ever jobs portal to help job seekers reattach to employment if they happen to get laid off or decide not to work during COVID. We've had 81,000 page views, over 11,000 folks click on jobs looking for work through that site, and we're excited to explore the future of that second year of that website. We also launched a really important collaboration with LSU and Southern to encourage businesses to hire our college students. If we want to keep them here after college, it is on the business community to figure that out. If you haven't downloaded it, download an app called Handshake or go to brac.org/handshake and figure out how to use it. We had 32% more businesses, 32% more businesses sign up to hire from LSU this past year, and 42% more sign up to hire through Southern. So we're seeing this momentum, really seeing that more folks are trying out this in our local market, and I would encourage you to do so. It's the best way to keep our college grads is to show them the jobs that are open in the market. We need to do more of that this year. You'll see our priorities around talent, really important to keep that handshake project going. But moreover, we've been working on this alignment of our high schools and our business community through something called the Talent Action Collaborative. Edgardo Torrero is our chair this year and last year, and our idea is if we are working at our best, we're looking at the employment opportunities of all of our sector needs and communicating that to our K-12 system, our 2-year systems, and our 4-year systems, and encouraging to make sure that they know what we need in employment, but also that they're introducing more ways to have real career exposure and experience in high schools. In February, Trey Godfrey's team is going to be hosting a career immersion experience to really invite businesses in to demonstrate the capabilities of their industries. If you want to be a part of that, see me or Trey or our team, and we'll help you sign up for that. The Talent Collaborative is one that we've seen modeled in other communities, but it's not the only thing that we've seen modeled when it comes to building the talent pipeline. We not only need to produce more folks, we need to recruit more folks. We have 3 jobs open in Baton Rouge for every 1 person looking for a job. And so we need to see more folks find out about the quality of life and the opportunities in Baton Rouge. To do that, we really applaud and appreciate the Metro Council and the Mayor's Office for giving Visit Baton Rouge and BRAC a $2 million award of some federal resources to heavily focus on this question of talent recruitment. And we're going to be launching a national marketing campaign that we're going to help tell the story of Baton Rouge in a very targeted way to recruit folks in who are not from here, who are from here and have separated and gone elsewhere, and maybe this is the right moment in their lives to return. We have not done something like this in Baton Rouge, but our competitors are doing this. And we've been watching them for a long time and wanting to have something very similar, and we're proud and excited to launch that this calendar year. These are the ways we're going to try to drive the talent migration into the Baton Rouge area. All right, let me try another one. We are a divided region, and no one here wants to talk about the elephant in the room of race or racial equality. These are conversations that maybe you've heard people talk about. Do we challenge ourselves to be different in this conversation? I would say this conversation has changed dramatically in the last 2 years since George Floyd's killing, and a lot of community organizations, a lot of community leaders, I really think have stepped up to rise into that moment of that question. And I would tell you that if you perceive this to be true, it may still be in the neighbors and communities that you're in, but it is not necessarily true across the board. And I'll just talk about our organization in this work. We think that opportunity is, and should be available to all, and it's expanding for everyone. What does that look like in our work? Last year, just as an example, we hosted an economic inclusion symposium in August when we hosted an event for a half day to allow folks to learn how to do business with large businesses here, encouraging especially minority-owned businesses to participate in that work. We had a sold-out event, lines out the door, parking garage was full, enthusiasm from businesses to participate was through the roof. And it was exciting for us to just sit back and watch what folks look like when they want to see what diversity inclusion looks like in practice in business as a way to reach out and make it something that's their own mission in their work. Last year, we facilitated 150 different procurement opportunities between large businesses and minority, women, or veteran-owned businesses in the Baton Rouge area in partnership with Metromorphosis. And we also did something that we have wanted to do since 2018 last year, which we planned and launched our first ever Minority Business Accelerator. We call it Drive. They had 40 businesses apply. We set the threshold that you had to have $500,000 in revenue or 5 employees. We had 40 businesses apply. 11 companies are in the cohort, and it's exciting to see what that looks like. Genesis 360 is here as one of our companies. What we want to see is this is not a one-year experiment. Dream big with this and think about what that looks like 10 years, 15 years, 20 years from now. If you have 15 and 20 companies a year talking about fueling growth in minority-owned businesses to see how big they can be. where it's no longer that we ask ourselves, hey, how many large black-owned businesses can you name in Baton Rouge? We want it to be that you can't name the list because it is so large that it makes you hard to imagine how many there are. That is the future of what we expect with the Drive Minority Business Accelerator, and it's happened, and we kicked it off last year. What happens this year, we want to graduate that cohort and plan our second one. We want to see that we can continue to replicate that work for years to come by laying down the groundwork of building our second-year class of that program. We also are dreaming big on another idea that there are some folks in the room that have given us some feedback on how to do, which is to plan and launch an idea of a redevelopment fund, a for-profit fund that we all can potentially invest in that focuses on disinvested communities, commercial real estate or residential real estate in Baton Rouge, to drive our capital markets into those disinvested neighborhoods. It would be amazing if we could have the capital of Baton Rouge driving in and helping to uplift neighborhoods, bringing jobs closer to where we need them. We also are going to continue to grow vendor connections through our Baton Rouge Procurement Opportunity Partnership. And if you are a large enterprise or a mid-sized enterprise and you want to have vendors that are more diverse, come see us. We've got a great group of about 30 businesses already participating and sending us their procurement bids through that network. All right, this is another one. We hear folks say that there's no quality of life for young professionals. Why should they stay? If you said this, let's challenge that notion for a second. And let's think about what quality of life looks like in Baton Rouge. We don't have to quote me. Let's quote Garth Brooks on Good Morning America just a few months ago when he said, "You're a lucky, verbatim, lucky entertainer if you get to play Death Valley in Baton Rouge." How cool was that? And that is something that he said on Good Morning America to brag about how insane we all were behaving that day. We got good media out of that, which is fantastic. Today in Baton Rouge, we have 530 more dining options available. We had a CEO move to town a few weeks ago, took him to dinner to welcome him, and I said, what's this like compared to the bigger city that you were coming from? He's like, you know what people don't realize is where I'm moving from is mostly chain restaurants. There's a lot of locally owned restaurants. This is a very dynamic place to eat with a lot of variety and choices. How cool is that? And Corey, before he leaves, let's brag on him before he talks about it in a couple of weeks in his remarks. BRAC is the #1 park system in America, guys. #1. How cool is that? Y'all can hear him talk about it, so I won't say any more. We have seen growth in the downtown residential population in Baton Rouge rising faster or close to equivalent levels as the population growth of Ascension Parish, guys. That is cool to see. The influx of residences in downtown is happening similar to the population of some of our suburban communities. We also saw in the last couple of years $82 million in local film spending. Has anybody watched the National Treasure show? Right? No? All right, go and watch Disney Plus, the National Treasure episode. It is a love song to Baton Rouge, y'all. There are places that they talk about going to see that are just talking about the experiences of living in Baton Rouge. It's not like they filmed here and made it look like somewhere else. They set it in Baton Rouge, and they talk about Baton Rouge in the show. It's incredibly good marketing. By the way, the legislature, Barbara, has to renew the film tax credits this year. We hope y'all do that. Gives us great advertising for Baton Rouge. We can get that done. We have a lot to be proud about, and I think it's something that we realize when we look in the faces of newcomers, they see it differently than we do, perhaps. We did a regional perception study about a year ago. What we saw is those who are younger or have lived here less period of time are happier to live here than those who are born here and lived here their whole lives. That is not great. We need to see ourselves be proud if we've been here forever and exude that pride when asked about it, as well as sharing it with those new ones who come to our community. And why does that matter to BRAC? When you brag about it, it radiates out to other cities, and they hear that great story. One of the things we notice on all of our Canvas trips, folks come back. When we go to visit those communities, they share their community pride exhaustively. You can't get away from it. It is one of the hallmarks of every Canvas city we have ever gone to see. And that's the second thing I told you. I also just saved you $2,000. You don't have to go on a Canvas trip. It's a great thing to see when you get to see it. These are what we're going to do around livability this coming year to continue to push forward. We've been collaborating with the mayor's office, with Hillard Moore, our district attorney, with our sheriff, our DA, and a lot of other organizations, and thinking about what does it look like to build coalitions of business leaders who can work on crime. We launched the Paige Rice Camera Initiative with the Law Enforcement Foundation, encouraging businesses to install crime cameras at their own expense, $2,300 through a nonprofit partner. You can get a camera that's immediately tied into the sheriff in the police department, that you can see what's happening. If you have a lot of throughput in your parking lot, it's super helpful to do that. And every camera pays it forward to donate another one to a neighborhood who maybe can't afford it, a business owner who can't afford it, or in a crime hotspot where we want to see one installed. Those are the kinds of initiatives that we want to do more of as we move this forward. We also had an incredible year last year for infrastructure. The legislature, Barbara, thank you, and others appropriated $300 million toward the needs we have for a new Mississippi River bridge. You can look at our website at brac.org/bridge to see what the process looks like for us to get it. Another trope that we hear is we'll never get to see that bridge be a reality in my lifetime. That is not true. There's a possible path, but if we can get there. You got to just stick with it, guys. They also dedicated $55 million a year to that bridge. We have, if we bonded that out over 30 years, we have close to $1 billion toward the new Mississippi River Bridge. That is a real head start on that project, and we just got to keep at it. We know there's going to be a lot of pain as the I-10 widening happens. We begged for that project to be funded in 2016 and 2017. It has to occur as one of the key infrastructure choke points that we have. It's going to be pain toward progress. If we can get through that, it's necessary. So is this bridge, and we got to stay on track to get that. We're going to continue to advocate for that as priorities this year. We also are going to build at BRAC an effort with a lot of other organizations, and Jill Kidder, who's here, and our friends at DDD, to rally community pride, that we talk more about those positives, and we give you the ammunition to do so too. So with that, we want to share with you those things and more. These are all the things we launched just in the last year toward our new 5-year priorities, and we couldn't do it if our investors didn't back us to do it. We're a business-led organization, and we continue to be one of the strongest economic development groups in the country because you invest in this team to make it possible. And I just want to thank you for letting me come before you. And if y'all have questions, I'd be happy to take them at this time. And if you want to read more about our strategic plan, you can go to our website at brac.org/bringit and find out more. With that, I think we have just a couple of minutes maybe for questions. These slides, we can give them to you. No, that we finished them like an hour ago, but yeah, we can give them to you. Yes, the strategic plan, if you go to this website, you'll see slides and information. Yes.
You talk about the promoting minority businesses. How does a woman-owned business get to be a part of that?
Yeah, so the question is, we talk about minority-owned businesses. How does a woman-owned business get to be a part of it? Our goal through our Procurement Opportunity Partnership is veteran women and minority-owned businesses who come in as partners in that work. It's something that we are still working out kinks on, but what we have is large companies, about 30 companies that are participating. They send bids through that partnership, and then our team, working with Metromorphosis, goes to try to identify businesses to match up with those bids as they come through. And so it can be any of those 3 categories that we're trying to line up, usually smaller firms that are in that work, but all business sizes are welcome to kind of come into that effort. It's a great question. Thank you for asking about it. Does that answer your question?
I call the chain.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can't get on the list.
What is BRAC's vision of Baton Rouge? You've got great goals and you've got great strategies, but how do we set ourselves apart from the places where other really talented people can live?
Yeah. So the question is, what is the vision for Baton Rouge, and how do we set ourselves apart as a place? We expect to be the best version of Baton Rouge. We don't want to try to be another community. We go to these amazing other cities, and we see things that they've done well to be great in their own right. What we see as important is recognizing what are our inherent qualities that are fabulous. And I think that when we tell our story, that's the kind of work that we're doing. What we're launching right now in our national talent marketing campaign, and I know Visit Baton Rouge is about to do something very similar, we're working on building that story, hearing what we all talk about when we talk about ourselves to others, and that's what we amplify to the rest of the country when we go out with this. Our main goal, and we've done this already over the last few years, is to get stories about Baton Rouge into the national spotlight. What we recognize that we don't often do is invest in telling our story outside of Baton Rouge, but our competitor communities do, and they're out there trying to make sure they're fiercely fighting to try to attract talent and businesses to make that happen. But yeah, it's a great question.
If you already have cameras, can they be tied into the system, or is it a specific camera that it must be?
The question is, if you already have cameras, can they be tied into the Page Rice Camera Initiative? Yes, the law enforcement partners have something called Connect Blue. You can actually take your residential or commercial cameras. I think they just want to know primarily the addresses so that if they see something happen near that location, they can contact you to see if they can come get access to it. I think there's also a way, if you have the IP address of your camera, that you can actually give that to them. Mainly, they just want to know the registered addresses of cameras. And so you can either use one of these cameras and have another one installed or a new one installed, or you can log in the address of your existing one through the Connect Blue program. All of that you can find through the Law Enforcement Foundation's website. George?
Adam, could you take a moment and just talk about the work being done to address public safety and how the entire community can get behind that work?
Sure. So we have been working with a lot of organizations, especially the Law Enforcement Foundation, BRAC, the Mayor's Office, and our law enforcement partners, to ask a lot of questions over the last really 12 months. But in the last 6 months, thinking a lot about how do you build business, philanthropy, and community collaboration to support law enforcement. Specifically thinking about that very specific problem in Baton Rouge in our crime data, which is violent crime, especially homicides, and what have communities done to try to drive down specifically homicide rates. And so we brought in some folks to advise us on that. We've looked at other communities that have seen homicides as their primary problem, and they've seen their collaborations drive change as a community. And so you're going to see us trying to build something similar. So if there are businesses in this organization that want to participate, we'd be happy to help bring you into that work. What we want to have is more folks that say, hey, I'm concerned about it. I want to be involved. I don't know exactly what I can do as a business. If that is a good description of where you are, come and see us or our team, and we'll help communicate with you what we're trying to do. And our goal is to build kind of a coalition of partners that are working on this effort. And same goes not only for businesses but for nonprofits that think about their space and their role in trying to especially address violent crime or kind of the underpinnings in neighborhoods as long-term challenges that are the causes and long-term sort of root causes that we have to address to try to sort of root it out as it goes. But yeah, thank you for that question, George. And we'd love to add more folks to that coalition. I think we're at time. Thank you all for letting me come.